So firstly, I want to welcome you to an actual live meeting, which is very rare in these strange times. I haven't held a live meeting like this, an open meeting, for many months. So it's really lovely to meet you live, not just on a computer screen. Yeah. Although we did do a retreat a few weeks ago. Yeah. And of course, meeting live is so much more alive, of course. Although online is also great. Amazing that we have this modern technology that we can do that too. And it's also the first time that I'm holding a meeting in Rotterdam, which is also really nice. So the title of this meeting is Awakening in Uncertain Times. And I mean, really, it's always uncertain. Life is always uncertain. But particularly now, it seems to be even more so. But I'm not so into that whole story of what's happening in the world. I'm not denying it, but we don't have to focus on that today. There's enough focus on it everywhere else. But the uncertainty, the not knowing, this is what awakening is all about. Waking up to who you really are, beyond what you think. And what you think is amazing. I mean, there are all kinds of stories that we might think about ourselves, or about life, or about the world. And these stories can be very creative, very interesting, very compelling at times. But they are not really pointing to or labeling or saying who we really are. They're included in who we really are. So all those stories and all those thoughts and concepts are not excluded. They're not bad or wrong. I'm really not saying that. So I'm not saying that we should try not to think. Because if we make the thinking the enemy, that just feeds it, actually. It gives it more energy. It makes it the enemy that we need to fight against. So, although I'm saying that you are not what you think, I'm also not saying that there's anything wrong with thinking. So thinking is just limited. It's great at being able to figure out what's going on in the world or how to live in the world. It's great at figuring out all kinds of protection mechanisms, defending yourself or manipulating situations to survive. It's great at remembering and sorting information and all of those other qualities that the thinking can do. So not to dismiss any of that. It's just that thought is limited. It cannot know who you really are. Because who you really are, well, it's mind-blowing. It's beyond, it's beyond the mind. And yet it includes the mind. It is the awareness of everything. And that awareness includes whatever is here, without exception. So what I'm saying is that you are that awareness. That is your true nature. And what is that awareness? Well, the word awareness sounds like something that you need to try to do, that you need to try to be more aware, or that you need to try to maintain a certain state of awareness. Which is why the word awareness, and in fact any word, is confusing. Because as soon as you put a word to it, really it's not just that. It's not limited to that word. So we can really say that every word is wrong. Which is a problem when we're sitting here speaking words, of course. But I'm saying this right at the beginning, that actually don't take my words so seriously. In the same way as don't take thoughts so seriously. The words can be very helpful to point, to attempt to describe. But they're much better at saying what you're not than what you are. Words are very useful when it comes to undermining beliefs and concepts. And that's what we can do here together. But I can't really say in words what you are. So I can use the word awareness, or life itself, or you, in fact, your true nature. I can say these words in different ways. I tend to use lots of different ways to say this. Because it's really difficult to say this in words. It's really impossible, actually. So take the words lightly. It's more about resonating with what I'm pointing to. It's more about acknowledging that you already know this, because you already are this. So if you hear me saying a particular word that your mind says, oh, I don't get that, or what's that mean? That's okay, there's no problem with that. And just see that, okay, you don't have to understand it. Take it lightly. Let it go, it's fine. It's more about recognizing what I'm pointing to beyond all of the words, in the energy of us coming together today. In the eyes, in the meeting, in the silence, in the gaps between the words. A sense of knowing that's always known, even if you don't think you know. A trusting that knowing, even if your experience seems to be the opposite of that. Because also what I'm pointing to is not any kind of experience. And this is also a really confusing and frustrating one. Because it's very natural on the spiritual search that we're trying to create a better experience. Perhaps we come to the spiritual search because we've been experiencing something very painful or uncomfortable. And there can be a longing to be free from that. A longing to come to rest in ourselves, to find peace. So if your experience is of anxiety, for example, then perhaps you have the idea that when I come home to myself, when I wake up, then I'll no longer be anxious. Then my experience in every moment will be bliss. And not to say that there won't be experiences of bliss, that bliss isn't blissful, of course it is. But like every experience, bliss or anything else comes and then goes. It can't be relied on to stay forever. And if you've been searching, waiting, hoping for a coming to rest or coming home to yourself, then you can see, perhaps you've already realized, that every experience that you've had, it doesn't last. And when it passes, once again there's a longing to come back to that peace. So what I'm pointing to is the end of waiting and hoping. Realizing that this home that you've been longing for is right here, right now. No matter what the experience is. And for the spiritual seeker that wants to have a wonderful enlightenment experience, this can be very disappointing. Because what we're saying is that this is it, right now. Just the ordinary sitting here right now. The sensations that you feel right now, just the way they are. This experience of this meeting, this sound, this thought, this feeling, just the way it is for you right now. That this is everything that you've ever been longing for. Of course, thought's bound to say, yeah, but this is not special. I mean, as much as this meeting is lovely, the experience of sitting on this chair is, so the chair is quite comfortable, but it's not blissful. But this is it. Because as long as we are waiting for a more comfortable chair or a more comfortable experience, this waiting and hoping is agony. It's torture. It keeps us believing that I'm not there yet, that there's still something wrong with me, something missing, something that needs to be added to my experience, and then it will be perfect. And if you've been on this spiritual roller coaster for a long time, then perhaps you're sick of that. Because it's really exhausting. Working really hard, practicing your practice, or following whatever steps that you follow, in the hope that that will get you there to what your deepest longing is. And although there may be some beautiful temporary experiences, they are always temporary. And once again, you're thrown back onto this painful longing. And the thinking comes in trying to help by suggesting I should do this, or it means that there's something still wrong with me, I need to fix that. And again, nothing wrong with those thoughts. But it's all with this idea that there is a one day, a future, when I will be perfect. So if we examine right now who it is that we're even talking about, who needs to be perfect one day? So it's not even just about the one day. I mean, if there isn't a one day, there is just now. But still, who is it anyway? Who are we talking about? Who are we referring to when we say there's something wrong with me? Who am I? Who is this me? So usually when we have a feeling that there's something wrong with me, we're basing that assumption on a sensation that we feel, a painful sensation or emotion, or a thought story that tells a sad story. And we're assuming that all of that is mine, is my problem, my lack of something, my trauma, my sad story, my feeling, my body that has this pain. And that is a basic assumption that usually doesn't get questioned. We're so focused on my problem that we overlook the me that we're assuming that the problem belongs to. So instead of focusing on the problem and trying to fix it, let's turn and have a look at who. Who does the problem belong to? And this, at first, is not something that the thinking wants to do. Because as long as we're focusing on the problem, we're feeding the belief in a me. And that seems to give me some kind of rush of excitement. I'm special in some way because I have this special problem. I'm especially bad, or especially wrong, or especially in pain. It gives me definition. It gives me location. I'm located, I'm defined by my problem. It gives me an identity, it gives me someone to be. Because without believing in this problem, then who am I? We really have to face the fact that I don't know who I am, actually. So who does this problem belong to? Who does this feeling right now, this sensation of sitting on a chair, who does this belong to? Without this usual assumption. Is there someone that it belongs to? Or is it that there is a sensation simply happening? A feeling felt, a thought story, just hanging in the air, actually, not attached to anyone, just experienced now. And it's really something for you to check for yourself in your own experience and in your own exploration in yourself. And you can check this anytime. And I'm not suggesting that checking this is something that's going to make it all better. It's not a new practice to fix yourself. Because, of course, self-inquiry, which is what this is, can also be used in a way to try to fix yourself again, which is not the intention of self-inquiry. Although you may, when you realize, oh, there is no me, there's no one here for anything to belong to, you may have a nice experience when you realize that. Your thought story may loosen, the sensation may get more calm. So for that reason it could easily be misunderstood to be a helpful practice to make yourself feel better. But that's not really the point of it. The point is to really see that there's no one here. So all of these thoughts, all of these sensations, feelings, the whole of experience is simply happening. For no one. Right. It's just happening. We're watching the show, and when I say we, I, here words get difficult again. Pronouns in particular, I, we, you, all of this gets very difficult to speak about it. But there is a watching, there is a knowing of this experience. There's a knowing that it's happening. So that's what I mean by I'm watching the show. I'm watching the show of this human sitting here speaking, moving her hands, feeling the sensations that she feels. So there's a watching the show of her, and everything that's happening for her is fully experienced, so nothing is excluded or denied. But at the same time, I'm not in her. I'm aware of her. And this is the paradox that is mind-blowing, because there is this human experience, and as this human there is full participation in life. There's no escape anywhere. And the other side of the paradox is that I'm aware of this human, and I'm absolutely untouched by everything and anything that happens for this human. So I'm untouched and yet completely touched. This human is limited. Right? She is limited to the way she was brought up, the conditioning, the body, the circumstances, the environment. She's limited to the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts. And yet, who I really am is not limited at all. I'm simply aware of all of that. So, this paradox is not something that the mind really can grasp, because it doesn't make sense that these two things could exist simultaneously. It just the mind tries to fit it together, or the mind tries to land on one side or the other of the paradox. So what can happen for many people is that when you first recognize your true nature is not limited to what you think. You might have an experience of, suddenly you feel that you're this awareness, and then you want to stay there because finally you've got a break from the intensity of sensation, perhaps, that you've been feeling. So then the thinking grasps hold of that as my new identity. I'm awareness. And that can be used as a way of not experiencing, not feeling the mess of being human. So that's one way that the thinking can land on one side of the paradox. And it can also land on the other side of the paradox of believing every thought about me, believing that everything that happens in my personal life is the be-all and end-all, and it means so much about me. So there are these two extremes. Living the paradox actually means that although you know that your true nature is that awareness, this isn't made into a new identity by thought. There's no one, and yet still there is this human experience. And the play as if there is someone. And it's all about knowing that it's a play as if. So although you fully feel, you fully experience everything, you're fully touched by all the ups and downs of your human experience, at the same time you know that the whole thing is a play as if it's happening to a separate me. But knowing that it's a play as if is not a way to escape feeling any of it. There is no escape from this human experience. And that, again, it can be a big disappointment for the spiritual seeker who is longing to finally arrive somewhere where you don't have to feel the pain and the devastation of being human. There's no escape. Really realizing that. It's disappointing, it can be painful, but it's also a relief. Because you're no longer trying to find an escape. Again, you come back to just this. Sitting here on this chair. This ordinary experience, just the way it is. Doesn't need to be any better. There's no escape from it. So you may as well just face it. Feel it. Live it. And it seems that the play of being human is a way that life itself, your true nature, loves to explore itself, to know itself. Like this and like that, in all many different facets. So even if your experience is very uncomfortable, even if it seems that you are living out some conditioned behavior or reaction, emotional reaction, this is a way that life is exploring itself, experiencing itself in this way now. And knowing that there is an unconditional forgiveness for everything, an unconditional love of this human, just the way he or she is. Just the way, the messy way that he or she is. Knowing that that is perfect, just the way it is. That nothing is missing. even if it's uncomfortable. Even if your experience seems to be the most unspiritual, unawakened, unenlightened, that this is absolutely perfect just the way it is. But this also, another paradox, doesn't mean that you stop growing and exploring yourself. It's not an attitude of resignation, like, oh well, I'm like this and like this forever. It's not that. It's not passivity. Life loves to know itself and open more and more to itself. So every time you experience your experience as being some kind of limitation or seeing life through a limited perspective of a me story, it's an opportunity to shine the light of truth onto it. To keep looking and exploring at yourself. Not with the aim that you will one day explore it all and open yourself up perfectly and then you'll arrive, because that's back to the same old story. But simply because life loves to keep opening to itself. You're never going to get a final prize. It's not about the me arriving somewhere. It's always just perfect as it is, even if there is never any opening to anything. And paradoxically, life loves to open and open to itself. So even coming here today, it may be that some of you already recognize your true nature as that awareness, or whatever word you might put to it. And if that's the case, then coming here is just another opportunity to keep opening and opening to yourself in every way. To keep acknowledging again and again that I am not what I think, that I'm not limited to what I think, and that this is just a play as if we are limited. So this goes on and on. There's an endless opening to myself as life itself. There's a recognition, initially, I'm not what I think. And this isn't like a finally I've got it. It's just the beginning. In a way you could say that's the easy part. The living of this is facing every life situation that comes up as another opportunity to experience and explore myself. Knowing that it's all happening in who I am as life itself.
It just takes a courageous warrior, a courageous warrior.